Hello guys and welcome back to a new video. If you will enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments to help me boost this video. Thanks. Story 1. But I didn't change anything. I go back to the days of punch cards. This tale is not quite that old. I was working as a VMS sysadmin for an engineering firm that had a software development department. Some of these folks were eccentric to say the least. One guy in particular looked just like the cat in the hat, minus the hat, but he always wore a bow tie. He also had a very strange accent. No one could place it. He was a linguist by education and had been hired to help with voice processing applications. He coded mostly in Fortran, but occasionally in C. Let us call him H. H shows up at my desk one day very irate. H, what have you done to the VAX? I code stopped working. Me, what do you mean? Did you get an error message? H, no, but the output is all wrong. Me, did you change the code? H, no, nothing has changed. Me, go get your code and I'll go over it with you. Now, of course, there's nothing, as a sysadmin, that I could have done to make his code go hinky. No updates have been applied, and nobody else has complained about sudden bugs in working code. So this being olden times, he brings me a 3-thick fan-folded 15 by 11 listing. I have him run the program and show me the problem. I sit down and proceed to go over every inch of code with him. One of my recurring questions is, did you make any changes to the code? Because I keep seeing things that don't look like they match up. And of course he denies it every time I ask. After about 2 hours of crawling through code, I proved to him that he changed a statement. Oh yes, I did change that, but an SHOULD didn't make any difference. So I tell him to change it back and see if it still fails. Of course it doesn't. That this scenario repeats itself about once a month for several months. Always at the end of a long debug session, I get him to admit he changed something. So one day after I did an OS update, he comes to berate me once again. Once again, I sit down with him for a couple of hours. And this time he has in fact not changed any code. And looking at the output from a previous run and the current run, I am like, why are the numbers so different? He just sits there. Did you change the inputs? Well, yes, he did. So I get him to show me the inputs. Old inputs are about 5 numbers long. New inputs are 10 numbers long. Aha, now we're getting somewhere. I flip to the section where he has the listing for his input parser, written in C, which is a change for him since he's a Fortran type of guy. I noticed that his input array isn't long enough for the data. I explained to him that unlike Fortran, C does not do bounds checking on data, and his input data is overriding something else in memory. And that's why he's getting garbage out. Cue a massive tantrum. What a stupid language. Who would write such a stupid language? I don't know H, but you picked it to write code in. Story 2. You're just trying to make my job harder. Well, it's time. For weeks I've been devouring TFTS stories like they're candy, some really addictive, but kinda gross candy. And now, I humbly offer up a story of my own to add to the collection. Background: I'm not in tech support. I'm simply mildly tech literate, can troubleshoot well, and have a detrimental desire to help people. To keep it as vague as possible, I'm a glorified sales assistant for a large company. I help enter and manage orders for salespeople I'm assigned to, and often end up fielding tech-related questions since a lot of our sales folks struggle with the many systems we work out of. This wouldn't be too much of a problem, but anyone who's worked with salespeople closely knows they can be huge divas for literally anything that challenges them. With that in mind, onto the story. Cast: me, SP, salesperson, SM, SP, sales manager, my manager, CW, co-worker that handled SP before me. Story: I started working with SP several months ago. Me, SP, SM, and MM met virtually since we're remote and everything seemed to go well. It was already communicated that I was SP's new point of contact, and I was briefed by CW, so this was just a formal introduction. SP was fine and didn't talk much, so I felt pretty good and assumed he would be fine to work with Ha. Once I started actually working with him, I noticed SP wasn't completing basic requirements for orders. One particular sticking point was that he wasn't tracking the orders he built on our CRM platform correctly, similar to Salesforce, but worse. Whenever an order is built, an entry on the CRM platform has to be created, and it has to include an order confirmation sent automatically via email to SP. This process has been in place for at least a couple of years. SP has been in his role for over 5 years. It's our second or third meeting, and MM and SM were on the call as well. Everything seemed good, and he had new orders coming in. He asked how he should submit orders to me even though we'd covered this in depth via email. And I found out later CW walked him through the process multiple times. I re-emphasized for him, in front of SM and MM, what he needed to do and even got backup from MM. He seemed polite, said okay, and that he'd work on it. Meeting ended. I got up from my laptop, relieved that I was finally done for the day, until the anxiety-inducing ring of an incoming teen call set me back on edge. It was SP, less than 5 minutes after we just ended our meeting. Annoying, but I assumed he just forgot to ask something, so I answer. This isn't a word-for-word conversation, but it's close enough because we were going in circles. SP, I wanted to ask you how you want me to submit these orders. I'm working on it now, but I don't understand what you want. Brings up a screen share of the CRM platform. Me taken aback and wondering why the ever-living he didn't just bring this up in the meeting if he didn't understand well SP. It looks like you filled out the fields right, but like I said, you need to attach the order confirmation, otherwise it can't be processed. SP, I don't know what that is. Me explains, yet again, what the document is and that it's emailed to him. SP stares blankly, I don't know what you're talking about. This is all so confusing. At this point, he became visibly agitated. He repeats the exact same information, and probably clearly agitated myself. SP quietly pulls up his email and plays dumb. You mean this? Me, yes, that's it. You just need to add that email to the order in the CRM platform. SP stares silently. I don't know how to do that. Me, okay, well I can help with that. All you need to do is explains how to print to PDF since we can't save. Host files, and upload the file to the CRM platform. Please understand that here is where I made my mistake. I was simply asking too much of him, and my manager said later he could just copy, paste the email in the notes section. Trust me when I say I don't think it was the method that was the problem. SP, I don't understand. This is all so confusing. Me, okay, I know it's a bit tricky so I can walk you through it. SP, okay. Me, alright, so first click on file. SP stares at me and doesn't move his mouse. What are you asking me to do? Me repeats myself a bit slower, literally just asking him to click on file in the top left-hand corner. SP keeps staring, and ISHTU not literally does not move his mouse an inch. This is all so complicated, I don't know what you want me to do. Me exhausted and ready to be sniped if it means getting out of this look. Maybe you should reach out to SM. I'm trying to help, but she can probably explain it better, and was technically the person responsible for teaching him how to set up an order in the first place. SP, this is all so confusing, and I didn't used to have to do this before. CW handled all of it for me. You're just trying to make my job harder. Me, oh you piece of. Like I said, you should reach out to your manager. SP, yeah, I think I should do that. SP ends the call abruptly. I was in shock. I couldn't believe this man was either so unwilling to learn he couldn't follow simple instructions, or be hell-bent on getting me to somehow do his job for him. Willing to bet it was the latter. All I could do was log off for the day. Epilogue. I obviously connected with MM the next day and relayed the exchange. She was shocked and upset he was so rude and said she'd speak with SM. MM assured me it was not my responsibility to teach him nor do his work for him. Despite the reassurances, SP ended up not having to submit his orders correctly for the sake of us just getting the money on the books. Salespeople are the collective golden child of the company and tend to get what they want if they complain enough. Anyways, I needed to get this out as a form of catharsis. Because guess what? After months of no new orders, he sent one. Not holding my breath, I opened the CRM platform and then immediately closed it. He had not attached the confirmation. All I can think about is how much easier it would be to get Patrick to put his hand on the hash at %#lid than deal with this. Story 3. But you changed something we said you shouldn't touch. On-time Lurker here, now sharing one of the interesting days working as a tech engineer for primary schools. Here I am, about 3 years ago, just promoted to network engineer from a service desk position, sent out to set up new Wi-Fi APs for a customer. The ticket states that their alarm system is fickle and I should steer clear from it. No biggie, 5 apps. That's about an hour work, including configuring SSIDs and checking if they are placed conform site survey. I SSH into one, and no connection. Check the IP I got from the DHCP server, and it's off. Off to the patch cabinet, and lo and behold, in a world where 90% of all primary school devices use Wi-Fi, and 10/100th switches are a thing of the past, I find a 1000 Mbit fiber switch functioning as a core switch to a stack of 10/100th up switches. Our firewall can be found here as well, but no devices I can think of that could produce a second DHCP server. So I set a static IP in the subnet I got from this rogue DHCP server, and I managed to find a gigaset VoIP box. Log in with the default credentials, and to my shock, it's actually running a DHCP server and functions as a PPPoE modem towards an internet connection no one heard of. This is where the fun starts. I turn off the DHCP function, start configuring my APs, and halfway through the alarm sets off. Customer angry because I changed something, and flabbergasted. I decide to go the make the customer happy way and go and fix it right this time. So first things first, how is this alarm system configured? Luckily VoIP and the alarm were installed by the same provider. Sadly, this provider sold all their alarm customers and all their VoIP customers to another third party, both unaware of what was actually installed due to a horrible handover. The alarm company luckily can tell that they only have systems using IP to manage, and all they should need is a specific open port to the outer world. This goes against the interpretation of our customer, who is 100% sure the alarm uses a phone connection. The VoIP company doesn't have any info on the VoIP box I found, and decided to just send someone to handle it and document everything to make sure this doesn't happen again. Since the VoIP box isn't in use, doesn't contain any SIP info, and can't be found, I decide to remove it from the network. These old switches, lacking proper ARP support, made this an old school let's ping this and pull cables search. But after eliminating this bugger and resetting the alarm, an actually used VoIP system, I'm finally ready to continue configuring the APs. Done. No, the party that installed the APs neglected the request to remove the old ones from above the ceiling plates, probably due to lack of documentation. Note, we were not in charge of the old APs. So I tracked them down and removed these apps covered in crusty mouse droppings. Never was I so happy with a bar of soap and hand sanitizer. When packing my stuff to leave, I hear the school head on the phone with one of our relationship managers complaining about the fact that I managed to set off the alarm and shouldn't have touched it. Story 4. Have you considered not giving the administrator password to everyone? If everyone involved were honest, I imagine the conversation would go like this. Hello, I am manager from customer company, and I need assistance with a bug. Some important files have again been changed, moved, deleted, defaced. Hello, I am Opus, your stupidly expensive consultant here to fix your mess again. This is not a bug. The files were modified on date by the administrator account. That's not possible. I'm the only person using the administrator account, and I didn't do anything. Are you 100% sure? If so, you may have a security breach, and I will need to alert everyone, change passwords, etc., etc. No, don't change the password. Otherwise, I'll need to tell everyone all over again. Everyone, you said you are the only person with the password. Well, of course, my coworker has the password for when I'm out, and my team for the jobs I don't want to do myself, and the CEO because he asked. And how can you say no to the CEO? I'll pretend I didn't hear that. Don't put it into an email, or I'll be forced to reset your passwords for real. You know that you shouldn't share passwords, right? But we all need to work on this, and we all need the highest permissions, and anyway I trust everyone not to do anything wrong, ever. Sure, I guess those files got deleted all on their own. It must have been the new employee. They're very stupid. It won't happen again. Right. Listen, this is the 24,601st time this happened already. How about we make individual named accounts for everyone here? I'll even give you all admin privileges, even though I know it's a bad idea. Because I know you'll share passwords anyway, And at least next time someone breaks something, we'll know exactly who it is and we can go frown at them and get them some basic remedial computer training. That would be smart and save us a lot of money and headaches in the long run, so I have to refuse. We will continue with the current system of letting everyone use the administrator account, and I'll call it in a couple of weeks when I fuck up something else. I meant the intern. It was definitely the fault of an intern. Sure thing, that'll be 1K, and thanks for your contribution to my quarterly bonus. Fictional conversation, real customer. Instead, they just insist they have no idea what's happening, and I have to roll with it. Take it from me, consultants are not paid for their expertise. We're paid not to laugh in the customer's face when they lie to us about their shitty security practices. Story 5. But I can make it fit. A scary story. Another story from the olden days, pre-cell phones, pre-internet. The company I worked for had gone on a buying spree, snapping up a bunch of small POS system vendors who were in financial trouble. Usually their product wasn't really bad. They had expanded too fast, and their management hadn't been able to grow their business without getting into trouble. Anyway, I was in the support service division, and suddenly we had a bunch of customers to service, along with a bunch of technicians in cities around the country. Most of the techs were younger guys, used to working on these small storefront type systems. But we had a bunch much larger customers being serviced by our more professional group of engineers. We had some overlap in cities, and there were various headaches with our professional guys not wanting to deal with the mom and pop customers, and the new guy technicians who were generally keen but not experienced or trained on the larger, more complex systems. At one point, one of our old big customers had a problem which we were able to remotely diagnose down to a particular large peripheral external disk drive. The usual engineer was not available, so we sent in the new guy. He had strict instructions to not do anything unless he was on the phone with our support specialist, who would walk him through replacing the suspected bad part, a large PCB. New guy was very eager to proceed. We had shipped in a spare part, and he was ready to go. Support guy walked him through disconnecting the cables from the drive so it could slide out on the rails that mounted it to a rack. Then remove the cover, so many screws on each side. No problem. Then new guy removes the suspected bad PCB, installs the new one, and there's an issue. He says the cover won't go back on. The new PCB is too big. It overhangs the unit by a bit. Support guy can't figure what new guy is talking about. Maybe it's the wrong part. New guy can't find the part number stenciled on the PCB. This is before cell phones with cameras. We can't see what new guy sees. New guy then offers a solution. Hey, the PCB is only a tiny bit too big. I could get my saber saw and just trim a bit off, and then I could get the cover on. Support guy, my boss, and me are all on a speakerphone when he comes up with this. I laugh out loud. Pretty good joke. Support guy and boss join in. We figure we shipped the wrong part. Nothing for it but to send him another. New guy hears us laughing. What's so funny? Yeah, just trim a piece off the PCB. Sure, that will work. With lots of sarcasm. New guy, so do you want me to go get my saw, or what? At this point, the three of us realize that new guy is not joking. Support guy hastily tells him not to cut anything. He's got the wrong part. It's similar to what is needed, but not identical. Box the wrong PCB up and send it back. We'll overnight him the correct part. We get off the phone, and we're all like, WTF. He really thought he could just cut the PCB down to make it fit, like it was piece of wood trim for his kitchen cabinets or something. After this, we were way more careful about what we asked the various new guys to do. It wasn't their fault. They had no training or experience on this other equipment. But seriously, when has a saber saw ever been a standard tool for electronic repair? Story 6. 1-star service rating, files missing. I recently ran into an old work colleague, and he asked during our conversation, hey, do you remember getting called into the principal's office, director of it, over Tim Jim's not the real username rating? On one, but I think it needs the groundwork laid. This happened some time ago. We had temp agency people come in during a big hardware or OS upgrade. Novel to Pasco, Windows 2000 to Windows XP, Dell to HP back to Dell, and then to Lenovo, etc. Relevant note, there was a time when most of our remote users had admin rights so that they could more easily deal with printer drivers, USB drives, and stuff like that. This surprisingly lasted about 4 years, until they pulled the plug with the upgrade to Windows 7. We had a lot of homegrown department-specific applications that interfaced with the mainframe in whatever way required for that department to access their portion of the business. Some of it required hands-on configuration. We had an OS and applications image for each of the main departments. Some of those builds were install and go. Others had the base applications installed, but they couldn't figure out a way to package some of the configurations, so they became hands-on deployments. To be fair, there was some validity to the fact that users dreaded any of these big changes. Some percentage of people always had issues post-upgrade. Attempts would build and deploy the computers during the evening, and us full-time would deal with any issues the next morning. Probably due to the fact that people hated these upgrades, management instituted a 5-star rating system for the deployments to try and figure out what was going on. The full-time techs were responsible for making sure that every deployed person responded to the rating sheet on the general portal. The results from that were sent to a couple people tasked with collecting the data. Things went well for me in general. I'd been there for years and was rarely surprised or stumped by anything that came up in that corporate environment. What did surprise me and my manager was the 1-star rating that came in from Tim Jim, complaining that important files were missing. 1 star was obviously abysmal and cause for great concern. I think we'd never seen anything less than 2, and that was super rare. My manager and I were told to show up at the director's office at a certain time, and we'd call the remote user to see what happened. We were in the director's office on a Polycom. He called the remote person at the specified time. After some general how you doing nonsense, he got down to it. Director, tech me, manager mine, and manager his are here in the office with me. I see that you're having problems with important files missing. Can you tell me what application or process is affected by that, or is it missing documents that you've created? Remote, with no hesitation or shame or whatever, I let my son use the laptop when I'm not working. He plays Battlefield 1942, which saves his progress. When I got this new laptop and reinstalled the game, none of those files were there, so he had to start all over again. I looked at my manager, who I've said before was the best that you could ever want. He stood up, spread out his arms like Jesus addressing the masses, shook his head, and motioned for me to follow him out. Some time later, the remote guy's manager told my manager how sorry he was for all of the trouble and the rating, and he had assumed it was just a bad deployment. The director told my manager to connect remotely to the user's laptop, check it for anything that shouldn't be there, and to remove admin rights.